This week on IFBB AMA Podcast, if there's a body part that tends not to grow or progress, or it's a weak point, then you might want to look at it a little closer to see if you can drive more isolation to it, right?
This is how it was in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and look at us. And now they say, oh yeah, you should not get off completely. Off means off. It just amazes me how people just accept what they're told. I'm natural, I can't train that hard. Overtraining. Shut the fuck up.
And looking back in my life,
Sorry about that.
or
That's my gladiator
hilarious.
music.
That's hilarious. That's great. All right, Milos, back for AMA Podcast. We've got a Q&A. Before we get started, and I have a lot of questions we got to get through, I have to say, dude, Regan is a force to be reckoned with. The pictures that we went through yesterday on the podcast, wow.
Yeah. I just saw him post for an hour this morning, and then he sent me 10 seconds ago a side chest that we converted into the old-fashioned way, and he looks spectacular. Hey, man, I mean, I'm sure that you're a fan of his physique. You have to, because you have
Of course.
similar, idea of aesthetics, shape, and, what bodybuilding is all about. He's a 6 foot, wide shoulders like this. Structure is there, shape is there. Detail from the back is going to be crazy, right? And I'll be working on all the other details in front.
I think of backs, right? And I think of backs in current day bodybuilding, and the back I feel that will ultimately be the most competitive to Derek is Regan's.
Let me put it this way. My manager Matt said in one of the podcasts, and they were trying to rip him apart, because Regan is bigger, taller Derek. And really, it's a similar shape. Derek has that, for a short guy, a little bit superior width, because, for per square inch, how you go, probably one of the best backs in history, Derek Lansford, right? But let me tell you, I mean, I'm watching, like every other day, I watch Regan pose. And I don't know if you've seen some of the Instagram shots. You can see the fibers from low lats into the traps, rhombus. Everything is striated, and the way he moves. That's why I keep putting hashtag fibrotic. We want to have a fibrotic. If you have a fibrotic chest and shoulders and back and feathers on the quads, that's gonna be super impressive. Check out, about 5 days ago, I posted a side chest shot on my Instagram where you can see every fiber on his shoulder that you've never seen before. I mean, so he's polishing big time. I mean, I love it.
That side tricep shot yesterday.
Yeah. I know. He's getting excited because one thing is presenting because you have to. Okay, that's a pose. I have to do it. And the other thing is, I want to show you. Let me show you. So this is what we're working on.
He's got to be pretty happy how things are coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, It's still a big man show. It's still always going to be, you need to be a certain amount of weight, what they project, right? I said, don't even step on a scale. It does not matter. Just look what you look like. What was Lee Haney back in 1991? 245 or 255?
I was going to say mid 240s or low 240s.
Yeah. And I was there. That was my first Olympia. Absolute monster. I mean, I told this story forever because I relived that moment when he took the jacket off backstage. He didn't even pump up, and thing was just like everywhere. And Dorian Yates, Lee Labrada, Sean Ray, they were just like, before he did one push-up. I don't even think he did any pump-ups. Jesus Christ. And Regan is right now like 270 and, ish. Yeah. It's just like, okay, Samson is 300, right? 330, so he's going to compete 300. Yeah, I would just lose the scale.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, I love, because I've been there before myself, and I know Regan's probably there right now, is when you're in uncharted territory for yourself going into a prep, you're like, you're super excited about everything because it's everything that you're seeing is completely new. And it's probably like mind blowing. I remember yesterday he mentioned how much that side tricep was a problem shot for him, but now it's just like unbelievable.
Yeah. You know, just like you said, uncharted territory. All of us been there. Like, yeah, you're improving, but you don't know how far it's going to go. Like first time, right? And then first time you compete, again, uncharted territory. It is what it is. Oh yeah, I look good, you know. But then next diet and another week, and you're even leaner, and skin is thinner, and then fibers are going all over the place. Like Jesus, and then you dry out a little bit more for whatever reason. And so, hold on, you know. So you can never really project it. But I tell you, I promise you, I did. Somebody told me back in the day when I started bodybuilding, 81. It says visualize physique that you want to have, and pretty much it took me until like 97. So it's from 81. It's kind of long, right? But I finally, mold myself into that image. Yeah,
it's amazing, Milos. All right, I have to say we have some funny questions, and
all right, let's go.
One of the funniest questions we'll start with is from Lee himself.
Oh, Lee. I'm afraid.
Why is Lee Priest such a legend?
Why is he such a legend?
Well,
okay.
there's a couple of reasons why Lee's a legend outside of bodybuilding, because he's outrageous, great stories, doesn't give a shit. He's very unique in regards to all the food he eats, what he does, these long walks, his lifestyle, his comments. Like, I mean, he covers all bases in the idea, the fitting of a legend, not to mention that crazy physique at such a young age, right?
Yeah, I mean, not too many people had my privilege. I've seen him compete in 89 Universe. Well, he was a teenager, right? So, and then I see him on his pro debut. He competed with me in 93 Niagara Falls. And, pretty much when Jay Cutler claims he has never seen anybody that impressed him as much as Lee Priest back in the day, then that tells you this is a guy that competed against Ronnie Coleman for a decade, right? And you've seen Ronnie in my gym 2003 for the photo shoot for Flex Magazine before the Olympia, when Ronnie showed up like absolute alien. I mean, I'm going to question Jay next time. How can he possibly say that this was not the most impressive physique, that Lee actually impressed him the most? But yeah, this is about the Lee. Lee is absolute legend for physique that he presented, that he competed as a giant slayer. You know, when Ronnie Coleman would tell you, I can't believe I lost to Lee. And well, let me tell you, so many guys did. And it's argument again, this is far-fetched. We talk about this 212 and open. In 212, Lee would dominate for years, right? But he would not even probably choose to do that. He competed at open. Was it the argument that he could have won Mr. Olympia as well? Listen, he beat Ronnie several times, and Ronnie was not slouch. He was not 1998 Ronnie, right? It was a little before that. But I've seen him being very comparable, and he is half the size.
If he was probably 2 inches taller, 3 inches taller, probably would have been
easily.
Mr. Olympia.
Yeah. And I never told this to Lee. I mean, many times I see him right in front of me, and he looks like, this guy is so narrow. Like he looks like a boy, right? And then I see that boy open up on the stage. And it's like, hold on a second, what the hell? So anyway, yeah, I know if this message question is coming from Lee himself, then he probably wants us to tell all the other things. His personality is off the chart. I mean,
Off the chart.
as real as it gets. And I say many times, I don't have any filter. Well, he has a filter in reverse. He tries to filter to be more outrageous. He
Yeah.
can't just say the truth. He spice it up. So yeah, Lee, forever legend that never change.
We had so much fun with Lee. My wife loves Lee. My wife's inappropriate way.
Who doesn't? Just these haters. Those are just fans, jealous fans, right? They
Oh,
they
no.
hate it. They are fans, but then they hate him so much they want to identify and be like him, and you know they wish they can be so witty like he is, and they can't. And then he just puts them in their place.
100%. 100%. This is a good question. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on the new weight cap for Classic?
I don't want to say I initiated. I love it because I contacted um, Jim Mannion about 2 years ago, and then Jim forwarded me to talk to Tyler, and I talked to Tyler, and I said, like, look, first I don't know who even came up with that height to weight ratio, how they made that first, but I told him, I mean, look at my bones. I'm like mesomorphic and heavy boned, right? And many times they told me, Milos, you had some looks back in the day, like early 90s. You look so classic. I said, I would never make the weight. I was like way overweight, for that one. To say, who determined? And then I said, I know 20 guys easily. They're perfectly classic. I mean, what I would imagine you would want to see on the stage and present to the world, this is classic, this is classic bodybuilding, a look that we want. But they were 10, 15 pounds overweight. And then by the time they drop the weight, they lose that muscle pop that would make them so appealing and more aesthetic. They're the guys to dig that 10, 12, 15 pounds that they have to make, they lose it. It's no longer the same, right? So, and what I tell them, uh, not just that. I mean, Logan Franklin was at the time like one of the guys. I said, okay, he's capped up. So now he's at the limit. So you want me to imagine that now he has to train for another 5 years and 10 years and not have a room to improve? So my suggestion, for them is, make it a little bit dynamic. Every so many years, evaluate, and then, maybe raise it. And I had no idea they're doing it. I've just seen it recently. I love it. I think we're going to have a much more quality physiques. They're going to impress because most of the guys just to squeak in, yeah, they have to over dehydrate and they lose something. And you know that very well. Mostly guys lose the weakness first when they have to be under caloric, right? So
Yeah.
whatever your weak body part is probably going to go first when
Right.
you have to dig it down.
I think it's a good idea. I like it. My only quarrel with how Classic is run sometimes at a regional level is I understand. Steve told me once, Chris, I judge what's up there, right? But
Hmm?
sometimes when you have, for example, say you have 5 guys in a top 5 call out, and one guy is generally smaller. Right away, he's smaller, but he's balanced and he has a very good classic physique. And then you get a guy that does not represent a classic physique at all, but is very muscular, very conditioned. Most of the time now, that individual still wins over the smaller classic guys within that lineup. So like I've seen that happen sometimes, and I'm like, and it's obviously inconsistent. It's obviously subjective, but like that's my only worry sometimes with the classic weight increases. It's going to benefit the pros because obviously the cream rise to the crop, the cream rise to the top. So the
Yeah.
top guys are going to be the top guys. But at a regional level, you're going to get a lot more bodybuilders who have thick blocky midsections, and if they judge how they've been judging at some of these local shows, you're going to see the middleweight winner bodybuilding win the classic bodybuilding, and it's just because of muscularity. See what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect perspective. I love that you opened that can of worms. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I really was actually wrong. Like 2019, I believe, when uh, Chris Bumstead beat Breon and George Peterson, right? That was like I made a comments. I talked to Chris Acida and for muscular development and all that stuff, and I say, how can Chris possibly beat those two guys at that time? Because Classic had a front double biceps, back double biceps, right? And he didn't have a biceps at all, and back was nowhere close to Breon and George Peterson, if you remember.
especially George
George
Peterson.
and Breon, like you said, look more like a bodybuilders, what I would say classic bodybuilding. Okay,
Yeah,
Serge Nubret type, this round, full muscle bellies, muscle is just happening. Now, when you think about Chris Bumstead, also didn't have a greatest abs, ab shot. Because when you look at how many poses do you hit, then side chest and then what do you call it? Classic pose of the choice. It doesn't matter. And I love Chris Bumstead. And what I actually seen, I made that comment. In which bodybuilding contest could Chris Bumstead beat Breon and George Peterson in 2019? There was no chance, no way. Chris Acida told me, but Millers, you understand, this is not classic bodybuilding. This is classic physique. And they look for the structure and they look for different things. So now to fast forward to what you said. Yeah, they still have that classic physique mind, what they want to judge. But let's say on regional shows, 10 people showed up and nobody really fits into that classic physique perfectly, right? Now they have to scale it down and judge classic bodybuilding and condition and muscularity and this kind of stuff. But as you see that Chris Bumstead is so dominant with his structure that even the guys that would be coming up and maybe contest him, they're not even close. I mean, Chris is beating them left and right. But what Chris did and shut me forever is that in 2020, with the improvements that he made, he would beat in any bodybuilding contest both Breon and George with the bodybuilding quality, right?
yeah.
And there is even the argument like, okay, if he does open, how well he would fare. I mean, I think he's going to be very competitive once he decide to just for a fun open enter open division.
Yeah, I don't think that. Dude, I don't think the weight change in classics going to affect what I stated at all in the pros. I think it might still more so in the local regional shows. Like I've seen a
Mm-hmm.
couple real questionable calls in an overall classic where the bigger, blockier guy with a big belly ended up winning because he was more muscular. Period. They
Okay,
just
I mean,
judged it. You know,
I didn't witness it. I didn't.
I don't
You
know.
are the perfect example. Okay, Chris, you can do 212 easily and a classic easily, and you would fit in both categories. You know,
Yeah, well, I mean, now the weight cap is going to be the same. Like for my height, it's the same. So
yeah,
like it's dead it's dead even now. Before it was not feasible, to make 204, you know what I
yeah,
mean? So
yeah.
now it's
Oh,
more for me.
oh, are you considering?
Yeah, let me tell you, Milos, I'm 90% sure I'm going to compete next year.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
are you considering classic or 212
Um
or
I'm going to
both?
see how my physique unravels, but probably classic. Probably classic. 212 guys are just they're too thick and they're too short. I'm 5'9", you know?
Yeah, yeah, but I promise you, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. It's a lot. It's not live, but you're gonna present this whole podcast. I'm not telling you to compete and be blown away. I think that you're going to be super competitive. You create illusion. Let them be shorter and stockier and more muscular. It does not matter. Your shape with that kind of conditioning and then presentation, when shit is happening all over, you know how that is.
Yeah.
You are big time conditioning guy. Conditioned muscle looks way bigger.
Oh, for
How
sure.
how okay? Somebody asked me, and I had no idea. How heavy was Lila Brada at his heaviest?
Oh my God, Lee Labrada, 180, 180.
Uh, that's what I would think. 185 maybe. Huh?
Yeah.
Shit. You know how President Jim Mannion was talking about the 1991 Olympia when Franco Colombo won, and then uh, Tom Platz was second,
Top lots. Yeah.
but he voted actually for Danny Padilla. And Danny Padilla was what? It's probably smaller than Sean Clarita.
No. Wow. Oh, that's right. I remember you talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just when you have what you have, shape, width, enough thickness, enough muscle, just if I'm you, if I'm already making a comeback, I'll hit two for the price of one.
When that time comes, I will send you the pictures for sure.
There you
I'll
go.
get your intake.
All right.
Did you see the results for USA's at all? Did you see the overalls or any class winners or anything like that?
No, I mean that was UFC weekend, and I was gone, so I didn't have anybody in the show, so I really didn't follow.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
No, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Somebody asked what they thought what the results, but
I mean, you can answer if you watch the.
well, I saw my buddy compete. One of my friends prepped him, Justin O'Donnell. He ended up getting second in the heavyweight. It was close. Heavyweight guy was pretty good from the front. Super heavyweight, I believe, won the overall. And the thing is this, you know how it is. Sometimes you don't have a client in there or you don't have friends in there, you don't look. So I only really looked at the classes where, I saw people competing that I knew. So that it was really kind of only narrowed down to that.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be judged for that, right? Because if I'm a fan of bodybuilding, I should watch any show, which I did many times when I don't have my athletes. But this time, it was UFC, and I'm a huge UFC fan, so I didn't even look.
Understandable. Do you think it's necessary to track sets, reps, and weight in a logbook? Do you think it's necessary?
Hell no. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm
I
sorry.
agree.
Maybe you're gonna. What for? What for? I mean, I know that Mike Manzer used to do and suggest, and Dorian Yates had every single one of them, and this is how he, gauge his progress. It does not matter if you, bench 500 pounds or 400, 300, 200, or 20 reps, 15, whatever else. You and I talked about this in bodybuilding, in other sports like weightlifting and powerlifting. Maybe it does. This I could see making a sense. I know when I talked to Ed Cohen, actually back in the day, legendary powerlifter, and how when they would peak, and let's say 6 weeks out, they would do 6 reps, and 5 weeks out, 5s, and then 4 weeks out, 4s, and I can see rationale behind that. But for bodybuilders, like right now, I'm training Regan. What would it matter how many reps he did the last week when this week I'm not going to do the exactly same workout? I don't think that I ever repeated the same workout exactly to a T. Even if I do the same exercise, I choose I'm going to go heavy. Here next time I'm going to do super slow eccentrics. Next time I'm going to do super slow concentrics. Next time I just go blast the weight. So for me, again, whoever asked that question, so if you are the one asking the questions, answer it to me. What is the purpose of it? Just so you know, I am stronger now. I can do more.
Yeah, well, it is. People want an objective form of results, right? Because they might not be able to see the size difference from a week to week. But like when they have something that they see that they're improving, it's that drive and motivation that keeps them going. Kind of like a general weight loss person sees the scale go down, right? It gives them that, that marker. But I agree. I don't think it's necessary. For me, I have a logbook, but it's a logbook in regards writing down to what exercises I did. And then I write down notes. Like I try to exercise that I've been doing for 3 weeks in a row, and I wrote down for next week not to do it because it didn't feel right in my shoulder, but I might not remember that. I'm like, replace it with something else. Or if something felt really good and I'm like, great connection, it was unbelievable, I would write a star next to it and like, do it again because it worked so well. Those are things I take notes on.
Look, Hunter Obrada, I think I've seen a few months ago, I was discussing something about it. Why would you need to be fancy and always do different exercises, different angle, different tempo, different, you just stick with the basics and stick to it, the same thing over and over, perfect form, and it works for him. One of the best physiques out there, right? And this is not, to make a joke over it. But for me, this is equivalent as, okay, we're going to have a sex and we can only do the missionary style in this range of motion, in this tempo, in this angle. What the fuck?
What the fuck?
You know what I mean? Seriously,
that'd be terrible.
Yeah. Varietas delectat. Yeah, that's some Latin language. Variety is delightful. I mean, seriously. And let's say even this, and you're very specific, and you know the origin and insertion and the pat and all this stuff, right? And how to contract and all that stuff. And if you took it most perfect possible way, right? But then you tweaked it out and actually you are not doing it perfectly, but doing it imperfectly. Now you actually get a much greater result, which I've seen many times. Like, oh, don't do it like this. And then I'm looking, his arms are way better than mine. And his arms really improved. Like Regan Grimes improved big time already. I love that fact. But I'm just, always open book. Yeah, your boundaries and like what you're supposed to. Okay, when we talk about pro science and bro science, us bodybuilders, most of us from 70s, let's say even 60s and then 70s, 80s, 90s, right? We didn't have a pro science to really tell us this is the exact how you should do it. There was a bro science. We experimented. And then 1,000 of us experimented, then 500 did perfect and 500, sloppy. But then when you look at those sloppy guys, many times they have a much better body parts, and everything they were doing is supposed to be wrong by the actual exercise physiology science and biomechanics. But then, so if you do the side laterals, right, and you just want to do as fiber goes, but you go off a little bit left and right, what is it? Does it mean that this is now not most perfect because you're just slightly off? And even though you include a little bit more front, let's say, fibers, it doesn't matter. What? Oh, no, I don't want to develop front. It's like I have those guys, if they do the shoulders, but they don't want to involve chest. Or if you do the chest, they don't want to involve shoulders. I say, hold on a second. So if you develop both, doing this, it's not exactly, the good thing. It's always the bad thing. I know. So you're looking at me because maybe I've been contradicting. We know how to isolate the muscle and do properly for one. Let's say if you want to do the chest without including the shoulders. Okay.
Right.
Without including shoulders. So we're going to emphasize that. But I've seen over and over and over the guys, okay, even though they include the shoulders, they get much more development on the chest, even doing this synergetically secondary muscle group joining the primary. And then as a result, I'm looking, well, you should keep it down. You should put the chest and just do the, but development is not there. What I'm saying is I don't want to be that super proper and don't let them, go by what do you call it? Instincts. Okay. And if you need to move and you use secondary muscle groups, so be it.
Yeah. I tell people sometimes too, when it comes to execution, if you are worried about an execution on a body part that's overdeveloped, you shouldn't be because it's working. If there's a movement, if there's a body part that tends not to grow or progress, or it's a weak point, then you might want to look at it a little closer to see if you can drive more isolation to it, right? I mean, it's like it's more of an individual case. Like you said, if you are incorporating your shoulders a lot more in your chest and you're trying to get more shoulder growth, then maybe you should make manipulation to make it more shoulders, less chest. But if somebody doesn't have that issue, then don't worry about it.
Well, I gotta tell you, I was not gonna say that it's a Regan. I watched Regan's video maybe a week ago, 10 days ago, and he's doing shoulders somewhere in California. There, he went to California, and then he was adjusting the shoulder press, and he wanted to make sure that he does not include his chest, just shoulders. And I was like, you need the chest more than shoulders. Please, please, on your shoulder day, don't worry, include some shoulder, some chest. Don't worry about it.
That's
I'm
funny.
like, no, I don't want to use it. Well, you really don't want to use it. Use it.
This is a simple, easy question. I already know you're going to say blast and cruise or blast and come off completely. Which is safer?
You're talking to the blast and come off completely all my life, so, and they're going to say it's not safe. All these people know, it's not safe. This is how it was in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And look at us, right? And now all they say, you should not get off completely. Off means off. Right. I mean, those cruising cycles are really at the level of blasting back in the day. I'm not going to take Tom Platt's, what he said, what was it, 100 milligrams total a week. Right? This, I'm not going to take that seriously, right? But, for us, I know all the 80s and 90s, what we were doing is probably half of what people are doing nowadays, okay?
I 100% agree. Like, I mean, I don't even have to know to not to believe that. Like, the thing is this about blasting and cruising is cruising is supposed to be, say, your hormone replacement dose where you are within normal limits, right? But now it doesn't become that. People are blasting and cruising on 400 or 600 milligrams a week of testosterone.
Yeah, but here it is. Okay, so the whole idea is I never look at it this way. So this is your hormonal level that you're supposed to be on. Well, now you're on a cycle and you're blasting. It's right there. So now when you're going to stop, what do you think is going to just plummet down like this? And then you're going to need to, hormone replace because you're already down? No. Okay, so first you should not go to here. You should go, normal level. And then we did always PCTs, with the ACG and Clomid and Nolvadex and maybe HMG if you want to stay fertile and everything else. And this is what we did constantly. I was in 12 weeks on, 6 weeks off, 10 weeks on, 5 weeks off. And so this would be about, how we went. If sometimes, you can take longer off, we would, but it would always be zero. I'm sure that you see my podcast with Chris Cormier and Dennis James and then whoever joins there. And every time when we talk about this, off meant off. Always. Why is this now? It's like, oh no, I need it, or my libido, and you already are setting yourself up. Okay, I know I have to have it. I have to have it. Did you catch this when Jay Cutler said that he wouldn't really tell much difference with his on or off?
Yeah,
it was like, maybe much, okay. And I didn't dig deep into it, but seriously, okay. Good friend of mine, Dennis James. Now he's a little bit more serious, and he is up to 240 pounds. I just talked to him today, right? He's doing 200 milligrams a week total. Sorry, Dennis, no secret. 200, and his body is just responding big time. Then I asked him, okay, Dennis, example. We talked 3 hours ago on that note. Can you really tell the difference when you were completely off and, when you're on? Yeah. So he says he didn't really feel like he needed, right? Like there's no side effects that libido and all that. But he says when he started using, he can tell the difference. Of course. So that's why we use it. And low dosages and TRT and, whatever. That's why we use it. But in this instance, what you were saying, blasting and cruising, please, who are you fooling with? You're only cruising because you're weak-minded. You're
Yeah,
weak-minded. You don't want to
psychologically
accept,
easier.
okay. My golden rule with my training partner back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, when we are off, we have to train harder than when we are on. Okay? And I know now, which reminds me, maybe you're going to read that question, or maybe you're going to leave it for special edition, natural training or gear. Yeah, maybe. So I'll let you have the.
Well, somebody did ask a similar question to that.
Yeah,
That topic is somebody will have a guest on talk
yeah,
about that who has trained naturally for years as a professional natural competitor and then went to NPC, beat NPC, and then eventually became a 212 guy and actually did pretty well. We'll talk to him. But no, it's funny you say that because also people that I know that built a strong foundation with themselves before they used gear said things very similar to that. When they were on or they're off, it wasn't like a drastic difference.
yeah,
Where a lot of people I feel that like might have jumped the gun with too much gear, or they built their entire physique with drugs and
yeah,
not a strong base, or maybe they didn't know how to train, or it's just drug related. That they tend to fluctuate a lot more. I just trained some guy who did nationals at light heavyweight or USA's at light heavyweight, and he got fourth, and he looked amazing. We used way less drugs than he ever has used before. Looked his best, but he told me even when he was natural, what he competed at when he was on or off is like he doesn't really lose much strength at all. He's like, dude, I was off gear for almost 2 years and I'm still dumbbell pressing 140-pound dumbbells. He goes, I'm on gear and now I'm doing like 145s, 150s, but it's not like something extraordinarily different, you know?
yeah. But not just that. Now you point out something very good. We all train how many years before we would choose to use steroids? I mean, this is really the truth. I trained for 7 years. So now, when we discuss this, did I, those 7 years without train any different than, when I start using? No.
Exactly. No. Yeah. Which is the greatest question right now. We'll lead right into this. How should you train as a natural bodybuilder?
Okay, so tell yourself, I'm natural, I'm not watered, I can't do this, so, compromise because you're natural. Accept that you're, not good. What the hell? I have those naturals that would say, like, you know what? Everything you do, I'll do it. So use the juice. I don't care. I'm going to do, so with this kind of mental state, and why would you choose? We already discussed this. 99% of the people choosing to be natural is because they are afraid of, fear of, oh yeah, but this is going to ruin me somehow, or it's bad for me.
Right.
This is
But
why
should
they're
you
not.
train differently as a natural bodybuilder or not?
No, but so if you, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, always train harder because you don't have that help that they have. Oh, so yeah, they eat all the protein, stimulate all the muscle, have all the rest, sleep well, and see what happens.
The disconnect, I believe I've heard this happen before, where natural bodybuilding coaches that are more like cultish, right? Where they're kind of think mainstream bodybuilding's poison, it's terrible. And they're like, you don't understand, you can't be coached by somebody who helps enhanced athletes. They don't understand. You'll have to train somebody and a natural bodybuilder completely different. And I will say this, when it comes to prepping a natural bodybuilder to get super lean, I do allow them to have more time. They need more
Of
time
course.
to get lean. But as far as like training wise, they're training their cardio regimen. Their diet is like, it's not like, oh, because, well, I will say this, a natural bodybuilder, I tend to protect fats a little bit more because of hormone production. I
Mm,
might make sure like twice per week they have a decent amount of dietary fat in their diet to keep their hormone production going. You can't really give them very low protein for weeks on end. I mean, very low fat on weeks on end. But other than training, there's no difference. There's
No,
not.
I mean, and you say give them enough time because they're not going to have all this fat burning pharmacological agents. They're going to enhance and make it faster. So you give them a little bit more time, but there's zero difference in training. Now that you said if this is what people are saying, and it pisses me off, like, oh yeah, you can be coached by these people because they need to understand natural. We all been in natural for, I did 7 years. God knows how many years you did. How many years did Ronnie Coleman train naturally, or Kai Green?
Long
You
time.
know,
Kai Green
so
forever. Didn't he
yeah,
deny his pro card 3 times natural?
yeah. I mean, it just amazes me how people just accept what they're told. I'm natural. I can't train that hard. Overtraining, overtraining, overtraining. Shut the fuck up. You know?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I think about what I used to do in high school. Milos natural. We trained like 2.5 hours every day, like 6 days a week, eating
Exactly.
Boston Market. You know Boston Market?
Yeah, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
we
no.
would go there. My buddy and I, he goes, you have to eat. We'll split a half a chicken. We'll get extra stuffing, cornbread, mashed potatoes, and then
Yeah.
we'd eat all that. And then we would go to the gym, and then we would drink these Weeder weight gainer shakes after, which were like treacherous. You're like, trying to drink them down. But I mean, I got stretch marks. I grew. I got stronger. It
Yeah,
was
of
like that for a
course.
long, long time. Long
Of
time.
course. I mean, it's just okay for all these naturals that are listening to this, and then you're gonna, make me a horn and make me an evil person. You are you choose to be natural. All the power to you. You don't want to be enhanced. Enhanced is you don't want to be bigger. You don't want to be more muscular. You don't want to be stronger. You know, okay, you're in this kind of sport, but you don't want. The only reason why, as I said, this naturals stay natural is because they're afraid. They think this is gonna be dangerous somehow, ruin their health, screw their hormones and all that stuff. Here's the guy that did this for 30 something years. You know, you could check my hormones at any point. I have a zero side effects in fucking since 1987. How many years is this right now? If you don't abuse, use it smartly. But we were talking, Chris and I, just off and on. You blast. You don't even have to blast. Blast means like, whoa, that's crazy amount, right? Two nice little conservative little cycle that's going to just boost your hormones from that level a little bit higher, some androgens, some anabolics, right? And see, increase your protein intake, train just as hard. I'm not going to say train harder when you're on. No. As a matter of fact, when you're off, train harder than when you're on. Okay. So you're going to keep that balance. Let the body recover until the next cycle. And that's how it is. Abuse is what is dangerous. Use, I said it many times. I'm going to bore you guys. Anabolism is constructive metabolism, not destructive. Steroids are given to patients, catabolic patients, cachexia, muscle wasting disease, HIV, burn patients. Anything to old, injured, to revive, to refresh and get stronger. Okay, doping is doping. Why? You can't use it. It's not ethical because who uses is Superman. Oh, you're bigger, stronger, faster. Yes, it's not ethical. It's not ethical. I agree. It's not ethical. But we are in a sport that it's not, it doesn't matter if it's ethical. You choose to be enhanced. We choose to be extreme. So you choose not to do anything, don't do it.
Agree. What do you think of the new FDA ruling of banning Oxandrolone off the medication list in the United States? Did you hear about that?
I didn't hear that. Really?
Yeah, FDA just announced that they're going to be taking Oxandrolone off the approved list.
Oh,
Which, I mean, it sucks for everybody who,
devastating.
yeah, very, especially because it's such a hard compound to get real on the
Yeah.
underground world. But I understand the FDA stance on it in regards to medication use overall, because let's be honest, it's majorly used for hormone replacement clinics, obviously AIDS patients. But I mean, there's a lot of other, like my father has tons of, he's got quite a few HIV patients. He goes, but none of his patients are prescribed Oxandrolone, right? Not every doctor will prescribe them. So it just goes to show that like maybe there's other drugs that are more effective, more cost effective. I don't know, but it is a
It's
bummer.
super safe, right? I told you the story when I got burnt, 4-degree burns, and I was implemented at the Maricopa Burn Center in Phoenix, Arizona. The first thing, the doctor came and said, like, okay, we would put you on anabolic steroid oxandrolone. So it's like, okay, let me just ask you, are you going to up my dosage or lower it? Because so what I mean. So of course I use it. I think I said it. I don't know if you remember. You know how much they had the studies with the burn patients? Dr. Caruso from Maricopa Burn Center back in 2004 showed me they used 130 milligrams a day.
130 milligrams per day?
Yes. Okay. I said, oh shit. I guess I should up my dosage.
For how long?
I mean, for the to recover whatever time period to recover. Very high dosage, right?
I've seen people. I know this is anecdotal, so you guys got to take it with a grain of salt. But I've had people show me their lab work
Mhm.
on Anavar, 30 milligrams a day for 6 months,
Yeah.
and other than their HDL being a little low, liver enzymes were still within normal limits. Their LDL was fine.
I had a probably similar study that now you're much more in the research. I don't bother myself with it. It's just people send me. Somebody that was very interested to maybe use it, but is afraid. And then he researched everything. And then they had a long-term studies with oxandrolone, like years, and slight HDL reduction, nothing else. Super safe to use. So I don't understand the point. Why would the FDA take it off? Like, what did alarm them and say, okay, now this shouldn't be used anymore?
I would love to know that when they do take drugs off, I wish they would give a report on the decisions and why. You know what I mean? That would
Yeah,
be
I see
nice.
the diuretics back in the day. I know some, they were taking off like mercurial base because of renal toxicity. Okay, but why would they? Oxandrolone is the safest anabolic there is. Pretty much.
It's going to be tough. I wonder. I should look more into the ruling. Sometimes when the FDA takes a particular drug off, it might be taken off for particular use, but still be able to be prescribed for off-label use, right? Because there's still drugs that are still prescribed by doctors by off-label use that the FDA doesn't approve of.
Okay.
So we'll see. Creatine kinase levels in bodybuilding, CKP. Is this a marker that is important if elevated too much?
Well, a lot of people freak out, but it's muscle breakdown, and it's going to go up. So this is how it is when you just see the blood test and you don't know what can potentially cause it. Oh yeah, that's concerning. But for bodybuilders, my whole family are doctors, and I know back in the day, my my brother-in-law when we came here, and he is also like liver expert, liver expert. So that's another marker that usually liver enzymes go up, right? And of course, everybody freaks out. So
Yep.
to answer the other question, no, I don't think it's alarming whatsoever. But all the other markers could be liver enzyme elevation. Is this really damaged liver or maybe overworking liver? And if it's overworking, of course it's overworking because you are under, the cycle and first pass, it goes through. So of course it's going to be elevated. But for CPK, right? Of course, it's going to be higher if you're especially training like a maniac.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And like I can share my anecdotal response to myself and other clients. I've had a lot of clients, a couple of them natural, that their CPK just generally ran extremely high, like
Yeah.
extremely high, like 5,000, right? And
Yeah.
the doctor's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So
You'll
the long
die.
story, Right. Long story short, the doctor did the multiple tests and everything came out fine. The doctor goes, that's just how you run. So it's not a concern. It's not cardiac specific. It seems to relate to weight training. Continue on. That's true. Now, I've also had a situation where a client was overdoing it and the CPK was like 11,000 and he did end up with rhabdo, but that's a different situation. Now, my personal response to doing lab work, because I do my lab work all the time, or I used to, is I've never seen my CPK within normal limits ever when I was weight training. They usually float around 4 to 1,200. At one time, Milos, you'll get a kick out of this. I took 5 days off, got my CPK. It went down to within normal limits. I think it was around like 200, 230. And then I trained legs like a complete asshole. And then I went right from training legs right to get my labs done. And my CPK was like 3,800. It skyrocketed within just that couple hours. And AST and ALT are also elevated, as people need to know those are liver enzymes, but they're not specific just to the liver, as Milo said. So you're going to see muscle breakdown also elevate AST and ALT. It's GGT you want to look at more carefully if there's actual liver damage going on. But CPK is something, creatine kinase is something that, you might want to, you don't have to like keep an eye on like crazy. I don't, because I know myself, but you also more or less don't be a fool and overtrain yourself too much and be dehydrated and get yourself into a rhabdo situation, which is generally pretty difficult to do.
I love that statement. I train like an asshole.
Oh, yeah. I was like, high reps, failure sets, drop sets. I was just, I'm like,
I never heard it.
Let's see if I can jack this thing up. Here's a good question. And actually, I generally have the answer to this, but the best solution to bring down your serum estrogen level, if you're only taking hormone replacement dose to the doctor at 180 milligrams per week. My first thing is this: lower your body fat. If your body fat's too high, you're going to aromatize a little bit more. And if your body fat's not high, you could try splitting the dose into 2 doses so there's less fluctuations. And then after that, if you're still elevating too high, then it might be just a little genetic thing, and you might need a little bit of aromatase inhibitor, even though you really shouldn't at that level. What do you think, Milos?
But that is a question mark when they tell you on low level of HRT, they have that reason. Usually it doesn't happen, right? Unless you say genetically it's already there. If you're on low dosage, I have a lot of people that I don't even start estrogen inhibitors if they don't need it. The whole cycles, when you start, is this absolutely necessary right away? What I do as a protection, I say, hold on, let's start this and let's wait. So anti-estrogens, okay, if it's used to really balance it, or pre-contest to dry out extra, because some coaches are throwing in there, so much. And then you see, this is how it is. The athlete sees these kind of things and then chooses no longer to use the coach because maybe the coach is expensive. And now I think I learned my things. And then they copy paste the same things, right? And then, so this is how I see that a lot of anti-estrogens constantly, continuously used off season, on season, doesn't matter. It's not the same thing. You use diuretic if you need to dry out and you cannot naturally, so you want to create diuresis pharmacologically, okay. That's, example. You use whatever compound to create pharmacological enhancement of what you want to achieve, because you cannot do it naturally, maybe not high enough or fast enough, so you make it faster that way. But anti-estrogens, just to throw in and use it on TRT, most of the TRT clinics, I would assume, they don't even give you estrogen blocker or inhibitor, aromatase, right, inhibitor for a while, and then they check your blood and then maybe throw in 0.5 Arimidex here and there, like twice a week, or
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I've seen a protocol of 0.5 milligrams once per week.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Super low.
Yeah.
It's only if needed, This is
I agree. And that's the other thing too, is people tend to gravitate towards their cycle strategy based on, in theory, it sounds right, not less what your body's response is.
Yeah. In theory, and it's just like expected. I need to check mark. I need all these things. No, you don't. You use what you need.
Here's a good question, and I get this a lot with clients, and you probably don't because of the people that you work at your level. But the question is, would you advise somebody to compete as an amateur before they are happy with their physique?
No.
Like, what I'm saying is, we're never happy. Like, I'm never like, every show I've ever done, I'm not like, I'm content, I'm good, because you get some people who go, I'm not going to compete until I'm good enough, and they never end up competing.
Yeah, okay. So that's a good two perspectives. Now that you said it, I don't think, Chris, you ever thought you're good enough. I mean, in a sense, like, you're one of those perfectionists, right? And then even when you look phenomenal, you would still think like, oh, maybe, I'm not good enough. I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're one of those guys. So I think that where this is coming from, you will never be happy. So at least, step on the stage. But the way you formulated, would I force somebody on the stage when they're not ready really and they're not happy with it? No. But I would make sure that, okay, listen, if you have enough years and enough contest prep, legitimate, strict, and all this, and you are lean and masculine enough, you have to start somewhere. Mr. Olympia was an amateur before, right? We all have to start somewhere. It's just like, okay, don't make a fool out of yourself. If you're really, some people showed up on the stage, they should not even be in the audience.
Of course.
So, they're not even stage decoration because they spoil the stage. But on that note, if somebody is already training for a few years, deadline is the biggest and best motivator. So especially for the guys, like, it's okay, maybe I'm not good enough. I'm going to have to step on a stage. I better look good enough. So maybe then that prep is going to be that much more productive, right? Because now the pressure is on. I'm going to make myself, visible in front of 1,000 people. I don't want to look like a fool. Let me diet harder. I'm not going to cheat and, start somewhere.
Yeah, that's good. There's two different perspectives there, as you said. And I was looking at it in the sense of, shit, every time I've ever stepped on stage, I'm like, I made good improvements from last year, but I want to still be
Mr. Olympia like.
Yeah, because it's like the first time I ever stepped on stage, I was a middleweight, and then the heaviest I ever stepped on stage was heavyweight. So it's like, when you look at it in perspective of progression, you're always like, the next step, be a little bigger, be a little more conditioned, I need better color, work on the posing, etc.
Yeah. On that note, I mean, I think I told you, and you like the story, when I went to European Championship to Italy, right? It's a Serbian guy, never seen, really real bodybuilders, but I'm going to go represent my country. And I go there, and whoever was coming into this athletes meeting, they all intimidated the hell out of me. And I was just like, run home, don't compete. Like, oh my God, right? And then I realized, you know what? Nobody knows I'm here anyway. Nobody's going to probably get any pictures for it. Let me just, try it. And I placed close second in a light heavyweight, and light heavyweight won the overall. And the president of the federation came to me and said, like, listen, you could have won the contest, right? But I was in that state of mind, right? Oh, I'm not worthy. I thought the same thing when I went for my pro debut in San Jose 91. I cannot compete with the pros. There was Albert Backless, there was John Brown, Steve Brisbois, Tim Belknap, Franco Centuriello, probably remember, and I was like, oh shit. But, hopefully I'm just going to stand next to the guy, and then they're going to take a picture, and I'm going to send back to my country. And it's like, oh, here, me and Albert Backless. I beat Albert Backless in the first show, I qualified for Olympia, you know, but there it is. And I was also this close of, I'm never gonna, no, I shouldn't be doing it. So that's the thing for those people now that you say, if you, force them, if you're not good enough, how do you know? You've never been tested.
I have to say, there's nothing better than being ignorant to how things are run in a bodybuilding show and having no idea how you're placing.
Yeah.
And then once they give you your placing, you're like, I won? What? Looking back in my life, you know,
Sorry about that.
or
That's my
that's
gladiator
hilarious.
music.
That's hilarious. That's great. What I was saying is, like, looking back at the shows that I've done where I very first started bodybuilding, where I had no idea what anything meant, and then you win. That's like the best feeling in the world, because, once you win, you know how it goes. You're like, oh, I'm roughly gonna be first or second. But if you're like, oh, I'm in the top 5, but I really have no idea, and then you win, that's the greatest feeling.
No, but Chris, just imagine this one. Of course, I'm going for my pro debut, and even though I was compared there, I didn't know what that means, and I'm called with this guy, that guy. I really didn't even have a concept. I could be in top 5, let alone in top 3, and top 3 meant Mr. Olympia qualification. For the love of God, I mean, right? So when you go with, I shouldn't even be here, and I don't know if I mentioned that story, that Jerry Rogers, who was a USA champion, and he was training in the same gym, with me in San Diego. When I went to San Jose, he was in the hotel, and when I was checking in, he said, "Hey, what are you doing here? You came to watch the show?" I said, "No, I came to compete." He was rolling, dying, laughing. You can compete, He was dying laughing. Jerry Rogers, right? Mr. USA. And then I beat him, right? And I invited him for dinner afterwards.
And then you invited him for dinner?
I invited him for dinner. He's going to compete, Niagara Falls and other champions. I said, okay. And I beat him in every single show, right? But it was like one of those things. So as those people, they're considering maybe competing, there's misery loves company, and then jealousy, and they're going to say, no, you're not good enough, and there's going to be 10 people pulling you back instead of focus on that one guy. They're going to push you forward. So if you don't believe in yourself, what matters if anybody else does? You need to believe in yourself. And I'm still super impressed with Nick Walker, for example, with this mindset. With Jay Cutler, when I'm in his podcast, I mean, really, if Jay and I were talking back in this day, 96, 97, 98, and he would tell me he can win Mr. Olympia, I would be one of those guys pulling him back. It's like, are you out of your mind? And you see, I'm not even doing this maliciously, because I don't see it happening. And so I don't want to encourage, don't waste time. Don't have high hopes when you can't really do that, right? So there are many, maybe those people that tell the guys don't compete. They don't mean it badly. They're not jealous. They just don't see what you maybe see. Jay Cutler saw it. He told me in 99 at the Olympia, but he placed 15 out of 16. He was expecting a call out with Jay Cutler, with Ronnie Coleman. Huh? Was he wrong? He is the guy that lost to Ronnie like 4 times and then finally beat him. I mean, he and Ronnie, that's biggest rivalry. He saw it from the very beginning. Like, Jesus, okay, that's something. So after that, I would never discourage anybody.
Let's do some rapid fire questions. Some of these are real simple. One of them was ripping on me. He goes, Chris doesn't like training 6 days a week. What do you think, Milos?
He's sissy.
Yeah, I don't like training 6 days a week. Doesn't feel right. I feel way better with 5. I feel even better with 4.
Maybe you would feel better with 3. And then
I do 3 now, but I'm saying, like, in my bodybuilding career, Like I've done periods of time where 7 days a week, 6 days a week. And I probably end up doing too much for me each day. And I just get a rundown. I feel beat up. My joints hurt, but the thing is this, I'm probably training improperly then.
Yeah. But Chris, okay. I know that you maybe want a rapid fire and all that stuff, but now this is a good moment. I respect you a great deal. I love what you stand for and everything else. But here is the real life question. I like that debate. So let me question. If, okay, success and hypertrophy and building the muscle is all about stimulation, rest, and nutrition, right? We're not going to even put in equation pharmacology for all these natural guys. Stimulate and feed it and rest it, right? Okay, so not going with the what's his name, Mike Manzer's theory, because listen, if people think more is better, so if 5 is good, 10 is better, so might as well do 20. But he goes in reverse order, like you say, 6 is too much, maybe 5, and you feel better 4, and now you feel better 3, right? Okay. So I will tell you, if you are just a bodybuilder and somebody would give you now $100 million to improve the most in next 1 month or 1 year, okay? 100 million, $1 billion. You want to tell me that you're going to still train as infrequently because you would think this is going to get you more growth, or your twin brother, okay, identical genes, is going to choose to do a little bit more training, a little bit more nutrition, and rest adequately.
Oh, I would immediately change. I know exactly what I would try.
So what would you try? More or less?
Given my knowledge now, the first thing I would immediately try, I would probably go to a push-pull legs off, repeat. So I'm training, very frequently, but my volume would be like, say right now, if I'm doing 20 sets for back, I would immediately split that into like 12 sets on one back day, 12 sets on the other, and then progress from there based on how I recover. If I go through 2 weeks and I'm like feeling damn good, great, then I might start to progress within those given training sessions, obviously taking into account my nutrition, making sure my body weight, obviously my sleep, obviously that's a given, and the pharmacology is a given. But I would immediately start with that level of frequency and then slowly start working up the way over there. There's no question. 100%.
Okay. Well, that was my whole point. So, on the question, what was the question exactly? Yeah, Milos, what do you think of Chris training only?
He says Chris does not like training 6 days a week. What are your thoughts?
So he's sissy. That's what I told Jay Cutler at the last podcast. And, Regan didn't want to do my workout. He wanted to do the your sissy workout.
I love the giant sets, by the way. The giant sets, like especially now with like the limitations I have with my body, giant sets are just where it's at.
Yeah. Now you mentioned recovery and you touched the giant sets, right? You don't need that much time to recover from giant sets, right? Because it's more that sarcoplasmic, hypertrophy and all this. But I really, really like. Okay, here's another question that just came to my mind: myofibril and sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Okay, injury-wise, potential injury-wise, you go heavy for myofibrils or sarcoplasmic volumization,
100%.
100%. Okay. So now let's speak English. You want to train and you want to avoid the injuries. Okay. Because listen, anybody that is doing heavy, sooner or later, it's not even a matter of if, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. So yeah, okay, you're going to give yourself 10 years with no injuries or maybe 50. Why would you even go there? Now, which we talk in many of our podcasts, train safely, okay? And, increase intensity through other aspects, not by just, you need that recovery because you were training like an asshole. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, 100%. Like when I leave the gym, I'm insanely pumped. The next day, my muscles are sore, my joints are not stiff.
Yes.
Where I remember before, my joints would be stiff 5 days after training legs because, like I said, I was doing it incorrectly. I was training that heavy mentality. I mean, reps were still full range of motion, but they're probably a little too quickly, a little too heavy, you know, more leveraging weight versus actually mechanically putting tension on the muscle I'm targeting. I'm definitely going to admit that. We'll end on one last question. This is a good question, and I don't even know how to answer this because I've been through them all, and I don't really believe in all of them. What type of recovery tools or techniques do you guys recommend for anyone who lifts? Recovery tools or techniques?
So recovery tools.
Yeah, tools or techniques.
Well, I mean, Jay Cutler was harsh on me, and he was right because he knew that back in the day I didn't really, take the time and go to massage and therapists and chiropractors and everything, and that he highly recommended. He was flying from Vegas to California once a week and then doing something else, and so putting investment into his body that because he needs to recover, and that body is his temple and his business, and so. Well, first recovery that we talk about is the other day is proper sleep, right? Proper nourishment. Now, are you going to do some extra IV nutrition, which is one of the tools that if I had it then, I would use it. I started using it when Charles Poliquin introduced me to, do the IV drip with all the antioxidants and beneficial things that I can put in, once a month. Somebody's doing it now, like a couple of times a month. Regan does. If you go to ice baths and stuff like that, I'm not much into it. Some people use it.
That's the thing. And like you said, I don't think there's any tool out there that's going to have some sort of holy grail effect by any means in recovery. I do feel that managing stress, sleep, proper nutrition, and obviously massage or mobility work to maintain healthy joint function is a good way to mitigate possible injuries in the future. But recovery tools, there's a lot of promises out there with these tools and gimmicks that people buy for like an extremely faster recovery. You're not going to see that. I see a lot of people buy all these like massage guns, and yeah, they might have their merit in helping increase a little blood flow, but is your recovery going to be substantially enhanced? It's not. I think everything that we mentioned as far as tools in the box that you implement and you feel benefit from, sure. But personally, me being active, a light cardio sometimes, or going for walks versus just sitting all around all day long, getting that blood flow going, good nutrition, managing stress and sleep. I've recovered great making sure I'm eating and sleeping well,
I mean, I don't know whether he was linked to there's many of those, but I don't want to promote anything because I'm not involved in. I'm not going to say I don't believe it. Maybe there is recovery tools that would make a difference, right? But I would need to be convinced and experience it before I would really say, oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Milos, just like you already know, we've heard a lot of things over the years of what it's going to be the next best thing. And then it's not, right? It's like, this is going to be the newest thing that's going to help so many athletes. And it's not. And it might help a tiny degree with certain people, with certain individuals, with certain injuries, but it's not universally going to be some sort of groundbreaking thing.
If you go on the YouTube right now and put the recovery tools, it could be like so many, right? But it's in general how business works. Tell them what they want to hear it. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell them what they want to hear it. Yeah. And, placebo effect is already going to be there. Oh, yes. This cup of Serbian coffee and now I can make up the story. It's going to make you this. Yeah, good. All right.
Yeah, 100%. Milos, that was a good little session. We had some good topics today. I'm think that I hope when they say recovery tools and techniques, they weren't thinking drugs.
No, I'm just I don't even open the can of worms. So let's leave it at that. We can always revisit this question if somebody asks again, because we can do this Q&As quite often. So next week,
there's still a lot more questions.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm available anytime. Yeah. You just let me know.
Sure. We'll do a part 1, part 2 like last time.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Did you get the luggage?
Oh, yeah. We got 1 bag yesterday and 1 bag today, and the 3rd bag is still missing. Luckily, nothing broke except 1 jar of olives, but we really bandaged it. We really packaged it really well, so it didn't
did it leak?
Lexia's clothes. No, it leaked within the bag, but not all over Lexia's clothes. That would have been gross. Hot olives and olive juice, olive brine all over her clothes.
Yeah. I had Charles Poliquin. I mean, I had so many stories with him. We went to Europe. He had 2 bags, 2 suitcases, but he didn't wrap anything.
Oh, no.
And of course, God knows how they managed them. And there was all broken. There was oils on his shirts and then clothes. There's protein powder on everything. Both suitcases, not just one. I said, why don't you at least put in one, and keep the clothes in the other one? I say, okay. So you got away with it. I'm happy for you. Okay, I'll talk to you next week.
You got it, Milos. Have a
great weekend.
Take care. If you enjoyed this podcast, check out the recommended clips here.